Hello and welcome to the King Street Cinema podcast. My name is Andy, and on this special episode we will be talking about two sci-fi movies from the late 90s that changed mainstream cinema for the next 20 to 25 years up until now. One influenced Marvel greatly and kind of kicked that off going again, and the other one, The Matrix, well, cinema hasn't really been the same since. King Street will be showing both movies soon. Check out the websites for details on that. Dan, the managing director from King Street, will also be with us talking about what else is being shown at the cinema, some of the movies coming up in the next month or so, a fundraiser that is taking place as we speak, and new exciting changes to the King Street membership. But first, I'll be talking with King Street's very own, and I keep saying it, he is the co-host, James Rowe, about Blade and then The Matrix.
Vampires. They're everywhere.
You're one of them, aren't you?
No. I'm something else. That's him!
Blade is the key. All our strengths. None of our weaknesses.
There are worse things out tonight than vampires.
Like what?
Like me. He makes the weapons. I use them. Eso preciso no sé qué es.
Let's do this.
James, welcome.
Hi.
You're back.
Good to be back.
Whee. Okay, we're going back to the end of the 90s.
Ooh.
We were in our late teens.
We were. Good times.
And we're going to start, because on the 5th of May you're showing The Matrix and Blade.
Yes.
We'll start with Blade, because that came out the year before.
Did.
It's sort of remembered as the sort of, well, almost the first film of sort of the sort of new era of superhero movies.
Yeah.
It is a Marvel film, and 2 years later, I believe, the X-Men came out.
Did.
But this was after kind of Batman and Robin and a few other films, like the not really a comic book film, but the other Avengers, and a lot of big budget, light-hearted, mostly comic book films were beginning to start really tanking at the box office.
Yeah, they weren't good.
Not really since Batman Forever was there a hit.
Yeah,
and
that'd probably be about right.
And then it went dark, and we'd had dark before, but we hadn't had dark and violent really.
True.
From a mainstream comic book company.
Very true. Yeah.
I didn't know much about Blade before the movie came out. I can remember. I went to see it, guessing it would be something more like The Crow opposed to Batman.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely in that vein. Yeah.
And I remember seeing it. It would have been at the old Odeon. Yes. Yeah. I would have probably not have been 18. Thinking about it, but I did see it in the cinema.
Right.
And I remember at the time really enjoying it. I have got the DVD of it, still sealed. I was going to watch it before, but I'm like, I want to come along on the night, but we've got a lot we can talk about the movie because we were there at the time. Did you see it in the cinema?
I did not. I think I saw it probably not too long after it came out on video. I was not, to be perfectly honest, looking forward to it, because at that time, so this is an interesting time for us, we're talking late 90s here, so I'm 16, 17. At that point, I'm not really into these kind of movies. I was into those kind of things in my early teens, 13, 14, but by the time I'm getting to 16, 17, me being the pretentious person I was at the time, I was kind of not interested in actiony, these kind of action movies. They kind of just sort of putting them to the side, going, nah, that's not for me anymore. Yeah. So I didn't go to cinema. I could have. I saw films of 18s by this point at cinema. Yeah. I saw first 18. I saw Scream when I was 14 years old. So
same.
There we go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I didn't see it. I just wasn't that interested. But I remember people being so into it, like fondly talking about it, saying, "James, you've got to see it. It's great. Like the opening is brilliant. You'd love it." Because I loved horror films. This is the thing. I loved horror movies, but I was not into action films. I was like, ugh, action, no.
Yeah.
So it's got the horror element, so I was always intrigued by that. I did not know of the comic book because I wasn't too into, again, at this point. It was quite a new character, I think. Hadn't been around for too long in the as a comic book.
Probably from the 80s.
Yeah, I think so. So it wasn't one that you'd go like back, Marvel, Spider-Man or things like that, which was what I used to read when I was young, Spider-Man. So I didn't have any real connection with it. But then I saw it, and I was, to be perfectly honest, quite pleasantly surprised by it. And I still think of it fondly. In fact, I think of the trilogy quite fondly. In fact, there's 3 of them, if people aren't aware of the films at all. Yeah. I would say that this is not the best one. I'd say the best is one of the weird things where the best one to me is the second one. Just because I think it's more fun and it's better rounded, made film.
I remember enjoying. I saw the second one twice in the cinema. Yeah, and I think you're straight in. There's no build up. Yeah, and you know what's. So you kind of. It's a bit much like Superman 2, whereas the backstory is established, so you can just dive right in. But you kind of do need to have seen the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you hadn't seen the first one, you wouldn't really know what's going on.
Yeah,
but if you were just interested in just a fun sort of ride where you didn't need to know people's backstories, it was good for that because it was, like you say, you just go straight in there. It's just gun ho, and it's quite fun.
Yeah.
Where the first one isn't particularly, though I think they wanted it to be more fun than it is.
Yeah.
It's too much like a music video. I think the first one to be really fun. Yeah. If you know what I mean. It's not quite got the comic book. They hadn't quite got the comic book down very well at this point, and working on it, getting better at it. Still think it takes to sort of X-Men to get the combination of, right, it's a comic book, and we want to make sure to establish that that's there for the people that know the comic book, but we want to make it dramatic and cinematically interesting enough to get people that aren't interested in comic books into it. And they hadn't quite got there yet.
And you've got to remember...
Until X-Men. I think that's when they get there.
But when this came out, and probably the same with X-Men, but definitely with this, they didn't plaster the word Marvel over it.
Absolutely not.
It wasn't really a selling point.
No, it was not. Stanley was an executive producer on the film. I also had a little cameo which was cut from the film, so that's a shame. Because I always like to see a little Stanley cameo in the movies. But yes, it was certainly not the selling point at all because it just wasn't. Comic book films were not popular at the time.
Marvel-wise, before this, cinema-wise, you'd only had, and we've got to stop bringing up every episode, but Howard the Duck in 86,
of course,
classic. And then, was it 89, there was The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, which I think might have got a cinema release, at least in America.
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but that would have been intended for the cinema, I'm sure, the fact that Dolph Lundgren was in it. Other than that, I don't think there was any, was there?
Not that I can think of, not off the top of my head.
Spider-Man came after.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think there was. So this was really, it was almost like testing the water, yet with the violent side of it diving right in. But I think they picked this character to so most people wouldn't know what it was.
No.
So it was sold as this horror action film.
Yeah.
And just happened to be
based on a comic book. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not. It's not a comic book film as you know them today, yet it does have the feel of not really that we shouldn't take it too seriously, though it's wanting to be dramatic at the same time. Wesley Snipes in it as Blade is fantastic. I think he knew right away what kind of character Blade was and what kind of film Blade is.
Yeah.
Which is a bit tongue in cheek. Like he's got a sort of sense to him that is, I'm this big, brooding, strong, half vampire, character. But I'm also it's also a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah. Apparently he was very interested in playing the Black Panther before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which would have been interesting if it had just come straight out with a Black Panther film. It could have worked.
Absolutely. There was so many talks of trying to get comic book, especially Marvel and DC. When DC had been doing better, obviously, in that. But to get a lot of these characters that we know so well now as being in these massive, huge films, they were talking about they were in development, loads of them trying to get done.
Seemed like an eternity where we're hearing different things for Spider-Man. That was the big one. It talks of like Arnie being Dr. Octopus and various different.
Absolutely,
and back then as well, pre-internet, we were reading all this in magazines and stuff. Nowadays, the second that any pen's put to paper about a film, we hear about it.
Absolutely,
I kind of don't like that.
No, it's rubbish.
Because then when it goes wrong, like we'll say Batgirl, we will hear about it and it's it's like it's the end of the world for the film company. Whereas loads of stuff used to happen and you didn't really hear about it unless something popped up in an interview or something.
It was a very different time.
But it's fair to say that if not for Blade, the superhero films may not be how they are today.
I think so. I think it's a fair thing to.
It definitely got helped get X-Men and Spider-Man off the ground, which were the first two to kick it off.
We have to say that Blade was a success. Financially, is important because I mean, like you say, I think that if it wasn't such the success that it was, you're probably right.
It cost 45 million and it made 131 million. You've got to remember as well, this was an 18 over here, an R certificate in America, so the numbers won't be anything like a Spider-Man. But that's fantastic for what.
Absolutely.
And I think it was very clever. Horror fans would like it. It is very of its time musically.
Absolutely. And the style of it. If you know that era, the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the films that were coming out at that time, the sort of the big movies, the big budget, the ones that were really pushed, it has a visual look and style that is of its time. And there's something a bit quaint about that now. You go, okay, that's a bit, that looks a bit amateurish in a sort of weirdly, in a really expensive way. It looks, it's very bleached out, high contrast. The editing is so over the top and flashy and cut. It's a bit of a headache. But the film itself is fun. It is a fun film.
Yeah, I mean, I remember liking Stephen Dorff as the villain.
He's great. I mean, the look of them, the hairstyles, the clothes they're wearing, it's so, it's not. It looks cool. That was the era of things just looking really cool.
And if you happen to go with your parents, you had Chris Christopherson in it as well.
That's absolutely
fantastic.
He's brilliant in it. He's the character that grounds it a little bit in. Without it flying away into some sort of silly parody of vampires and all the rest of it. He's sort of the more serious character that's not got his tongue in his cheek, but he also knows what he's doing. He knows what kind of film he's in, but he knows of his age, the character that he's portraying, sort of the father figure to Blade. He knows that he is there for us, the audience, to have a little bit the feeling of family. That element to it. And that's important, because if it didn't have that, it would just, I think, be completely thrown away as just a silly film. It's completely silly.
I was just at the time this came out, I remember thinking, he's a bit like a Giles from Buffy type. But also around this time, Buffy was huge. So that's vampires. It's 10 years later, but we'd all grown up watching The Lost Boys. Vampires is something that hadn't really gone away. Interview of a Vampire, around a few years before. So
the more serious vampire films, more sort of, trying to be sort of taken a little bit more seriously than just the old campy sort of things.
But I think things like Buffy would have helped with this. It's in the consciousness, and people who watch Buffy every week, which kind of forgotten over here that in America that was kind of sold as a kids show. They'd want to see a more violent side of it, and I think when this came out, it was it's R in America, but so many kids would have gone. Over. I mean, we were a bit too young when we saw it, but in America, you can see an R-rated film with your parent or with an adult, which I think that was the audience. It was sold at and kids who 10 years before would have been 10, 12 when the first Batman came out, now are old enough for more, and they want more. Films had come out like The Shadow, The Phantom, a lot of these movies which were just rehashes or trying to be rehashes of Batman. I'm quite surprised there wasn't more films trying to be Superman in the 70s and 80s. But I don't suppose there was the characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm surprised we didn't get a Shazam before we did, things like that. But I think the reason Blade worked, firstly, as you say, it's a surprisingly good film. You know,
I think so.
But it appeals, even though it's an 18 certificate, it appeals to so many different people. You've got the soundtrack wise is kind of, there's the industrial side of it, the dance side. The metalers liked it. It's vampires, and there was a little bit of metal in the soundtrack, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. It is more. But this again, it's completely of the era, very much so. There's a lot of hip hop in it, but hip hop and metal were very crossed over at the time.
Yeah,
they were collaborating. People that were hip hop musicians were collaborating with metal musicians loads.
Yeah, and that's when
the whole new metal thing.
Yeah.
It's very much that on the soundtrack. As well as Prodigy influenced music.
Yeah. I think it is one that I think kids now who they can't, I always sort of see that they look at the 90s in the way that we would have looked at the 70s. Like a lot of the stuff's really cool. And and there's like they're doing a new Blade. I don't know if it's a series or whatever. I think it won't be. I think it'll be like a 12 certificate 15. But there's still a demand for it, and I'm not too sure, but I think one of the reasons the season died down was the career of Wesley Snipes. Yeah, because it all went a bit wrong, didn't it?
Well, he sort of, especially on the third film, has he's in all three, but in the third film there is certainly, you can get a feeling of a lack of uninterest, and almost a lack of, I can do whatever I want, I'm Blade.
Is that not the one? I've never seen the third one. And I think I've heard that's where he fell out with the director. Yeah. And there's a lot of stand-ins for him, and they all went a bit crazy.
Yeah, it just, you don't really feel like he's in even though he is in the film. Yeah. It just got this feeling like he's just like, I don't care. Yeah. I'm not really in it.
I remember that coming out. That one was a 15 certificate, so but it's still done well, I think. I haven't looked at the thing, but I mean, it was Ryan Reynolds, one of his first attempts to do a successful superhero.
Yeah, that's true.
He got there in the end, didn't he?
He did.
He tried several times and he did get there. I should really watch the third one. That one I've got on DVD, still sealed.
I've only seen it the once, and I was not overly impressed, so I never saw it. I never bothered going back to see it again. So, yeah.
The second one has a member of Bros as the...
It does indeed. He's the main bad guy in it. I couldn't remember if it's Matt or Luke.
Yeah, one of them.
I think it's Luke, because I think Matt wasn't the one that went the acting way. He tried to get into acting, I think so.
So,
anyway.
Yeah, so Blade, 5th of May with The Matrix.
Yes.
Which I think we should we just take a little break and I can put a trailer on?
Yeah, absolutely.
A trailer or a clip or something of The Matrix to get us in the mood. For a movie that over 20 years later is still being talked about.
I mean, no one knows it, do they?
Dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
What is happening to me?
The answer is out there, Neo. It's the question that drives us.
What is the Matrix?
The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
They're watching you, Neo.
Human beings are a disease. You are a cancer of this planet. And we are the cure.
Get me the hell out of here!
Welcome to the real world.
So you're here to save the world. So what do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
No one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy. Because Kansas is going bye-bye.
So it's 1999. All sci-fi fans care about is the new Star Wars movie we've been waiting for a good 17 years.
Yeah.
All of my life, that was the film I've been waiting for. And then this happened, The Matrix.
Yeah.
I remember the first review of The Matrix I read, probably in Empire magazine or something like that. The little quote was, George Lucas didn't see this coming.
Very true.
That is true, but completely different movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only real things it's got in common are the fact it's sci-fi. Two completely different styles of sci-fi.
Absolutely.
But The Matrix, very adult orientated. It's 15 over here. Probably it's got to be an R rating in America, hasn't it? I don't think it'd be PG-13.
To be perfectly honest, I do not know.
I reckon it's not.
But you reckon it was R?
I reckon it was R. But 8.7 on IMDb, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Wow.
and 4.1 on Letterboxd.
This is a movie, clearly, that everyone should be seeing.
Yeah. A budget of 63 million.
Yeah.
So this got more than Blade. Worldwide gross. Do you know how much this movie made?
It's over 400 million.
467 million.
There we go. Yeah.
467 million.
Huge numbers.
Huge. Did you see this one in the cinema?
I did not. Again, did not see it for similar reasons. Though this one I was more intrigued about because of the hype of the special effects, which I was very interested in. Some of the camera operations in the film, which are very nerdy, was really into at the time. So there was revolutionary stuff going on there in the techniques of filming, which I was fascinated with, but I didn't see it because, again, it was action movie. It was sold as this big action movie, and I'd seen lots of clips of the action scenes and thought, oh well, they're shot nicely, but I just don't really. If it's just going to be a movie of action sequences, I'm not really too fussed. And again, a year or so later, everyone's talking about it. Raven, you've got to see the film. Got to see the.
You're like, oh,
okay, I will. And by this point, I'd heard the soundtrack and had quite enjoyed the set. It was that was another thing. Loads of my friends had the soundtrack. I'd hear it pretty much every time I went around their house. It was on all the time.
I can remember the Rage Against the Machine. Wake Up is on TV. Everyone loved it. And I'm like, oh, I bet years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
God, get with
I've got the album.
Yeah.
I had the album already. I was
They've
like,
only picked that one because there's no swearing in it. But yeah.
So yeah, the music, great. I was like, oh yes, like the music. A lot of things around it. So fine, watch it. Watch the film, and yeah, I did really enjoy it. I thought, yes, this is a really good film. I understand why people are talking about it in the way they are, and yeah, for the time, it looks really similar to Blade in so many ways that I don't think people really pick up on because they're all kind of superficial things. It looks quite similar. It's shot in a kind of similar-ishy kind of way. This much better, done, more professionally, I'd say, but with more competent filmmakers.
Yeah.
But still a very similar look, similar style, wanting to be hip, cool, edgy of its, of the now, or even the future,
Yeah, but it's a very 90s future.
Yeah.
And they often say nothing ages more than the.
Yeah.
But I think this has aged quite well. But
in certain respects, it has. Yeah.
I mean, I went to see it. I was in sixth form. All my friends wanted to go. I kind of went against my will, because of the hype. Because I was a stubborn.
Yeah.
You should be watching independent films stage of my life, even though I was probably at home watching my video of Armageddon.
It's not bad, the cinema, actually.
Yeah, Armageddon's fire. It's cheesy fun. And Aerosmith. So I went along, and I'd forgotten Blade, that it had that look, but also it reminded me of films that didn't quite work. And Keanu Reeves, Johnny Mnemonic. It had that all over it. A film which at the time I'd watched and thought was rubbish. I've since watched and kind of enjoy it, probably because of the nostalgia thing. It really felt like a film I didn't mind, but kind of slow. Dark City. Yeah,
Dark City, which came out the year before, which they had stolen. They had stolen some of the sets from.
Oh, really? That might be way around a bit. It had that look about it, and it was. Keanu Reeves, I think, was on a bit of a down before this. He'd had films like Chain Reaction and mentioned Johnny Mnemonic and a lot of poor action films, and he tried some romance films. The only hit I think I can think of between Speed, which is a big action film,
Massive.
and I like that.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, of course, yes. Straight after the Mario Brothers film, he done that, which is great. And Waterworld, whatever. Anyway,
exactly.
I digress. The Devil's Advocate, which I think done okay.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Which was a film I didn't particularly like.
That wasn't great,
but
was
I
it?
think that done okay. I don't know if it's a massive...
It probably did all right.
And I thought it felt like, to me, he was doing... I was so wrong, I'll add, but I felt like he was just doing this... It was another Keanu Reeves film.
Yeah.
And I was very wrong.
Okay. I understand that, though.
And
that feeling.
Yeah, and now looking back, I think he was great for the role. Will Smith was offered it.
He was the original... I think the original person went off to do Wild Wild West. Well done, Will.
we can wow. I mean, I like trash, but that's just...
That's a bad film.
Yeah. It's...
Imagine that. You go... I mean, hindsight, you go, which am I going to do? Wild Wild West or The Matrix? I'll choose Wild Wild West.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair...
the budget on that movie was huge.
Yeah. I don't. Was it the director of Men in Black who he'd worked with anyway?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was based on a hit TV series from years ago, so it had an audience.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kline's in it, who rules,
yeah,
right?
All right, fine.
And I don't think Kevin Kline's done much since. I mean, I watched that recently,
anyway.
And I forget that was around the same time.
Yeah.
It was all these. This is the thing. There was a lot of these 12 certificate PG. They spent millions on films that were kind of fluff.
Yeah.
And this was the one that was like, nah, it's going to be a bit more serious. Or at least look serious.
Well, this film is The Matrix. We're going back to The Matrix. Obviously, is a different thing altogether in a way, because I don't know how they got the budget that they did for 63 minutes. I mean, it must be based on, I think, a lot of smooth talking and their film that they made before,
Band,
which was a small, tiny budget, but was very successful for what it was. I think it was very well received, and I think on that basis of that, they were given an opportunity, which if they messed it up, I'm sure they would have been the end of their careers, because this film was not based on like lots of people with lots of money going, let's make a huge movie sort of thing.
And so the
it was a sleeper hit. Like it was not a thing that people were like, before originally thinking this is going to be a massive thing. That was Star Wars. Star Wars was the thing.
It was definitely the outsider.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Wachowskis, they'd done Bound before this, but you were saying they've done special effects and things?
Sorry, that big guy from Blade.
But what had they done other than...
They'd written Assassins, which I don't think was a massive film. That was a Sly Stallone film.
Oh, and Banderas.
Banderas. And apart from that, I don't think they'd done anything too major as far as a big Hollywood movie. And like I say, I think it's all based on Bound being the sort of a sleeper hit, a small movie with an interesting premise that's done in a very flashy, interesting way for the time, and on that basis they were given an opportunity, because I'm sure they'd come at the studios, Warner's, and there's an Australian company which I'm forgetting the name of right now who were involved in the production. And just come at them with this really interesting premise and just give it an opportunity, basically, I think. Which happens from time to time.
Yeah,
but it is the sort of thing that makes or breaks people. I think if it hadn't have worked, that would have been the end of their career. We would never have heard of them again.
I mean, 63 million. I mean, that's especially for then.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was something like Wild Wild West numbers, which I think was like 200 million or something. Which was a flop, by the way.
I mean, I think... maybe they were being very clever, doing something more darker and adult because they knew Star Wars was coming out. Maybe they're like, so what this summer is a new product, and there was probably nothing or not a lot. So it was a risk, but a risk worth taking.
Absolutely.
And it had a good cast, but Keanu Reeves is the only... I mean, Lawrence Fishburne, good character actor.
But you said before, like you say, Keanu Reeves though popular, was on a downer.
Yeah.
He was. He had a string of films that had not done anywhere near as well as they should have done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd have had a big hit since Speed, which was 5
exactly.
years.
That was the last one. And you say 5 years sounds nothing, but it's a big thing.
It felt longer than it felt.
But it is a big thing when you're a star. When you're a star, and if you do a few films in a row which do not work, that very much could be the end of your career if you don't, have something quickly that comes up like this that, propels you back to stardom. And so, I'm sure he would have thought at the time, this sounds great, this sounds really interesting, I want to do this movie. But I'm sure he wasn't thinking, right, this is going to bring my career back to... I'm sure he was hoping that, but I wouldn't have thought he would have,
But saying all that, I think Keanu Reeves is the kind of guy who probably just wants to make the films he wants to
Absolutely, this is it. He seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy.
Yeah, Speed was pretty big. I remember it being huge. And he didn't do the second one.
No.
Possibly he'd read the script. But that was brave of him, I think.
Yeah.
And even more recently, it's like his career, he didn't need to do another Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
The way it's gone, he was like... A lot of actors would be like, forget that silly comedy. But he clearly loves it and done it as a passion project.
Thinking of Bill and Ted, you see, at that time, here we are in the late 90s, I'm a massive fan still of Bill and Ted. Remember it extremely fondly as I do now, but even then, remember it really fondly was when I was younger. And my thoughts on Keanu Reeves were, what have you done? Why aren't you making still these kind of Bill and Ted type movies? Why have you gone into this kind of action hero type, thriller type movies that you're making? And of course, I'm completely wrong on that assessment.
His career would have gone the Pauly Shore route.
Yeah.
I mentioned Pauly Shore again. But it would have done. And I think he's had a really good career. I mean, the only thing that's sort of close to the Bill and Ted was the character he played in Parenthood, which I think he's great in. I think that's a really underrated, great film.
It's the same time. It's the time of Bill and Ted, isn't it?
It's in between the two, I believe.
And at that point, he was still very young and playing that kind of character in I think some other films as well. Maybe not so
comedy,
but still playing the sort of surfer duty type kind of character. Yeah. So whatever. And I get that you'd want to get away from that if you want to take yourself seriously, which of course he does. Take yourself as an actor. He takes his job seriously. But just thinking of other people in the film as well. You got Lawrence Fishburne, an absolutely brilliant actor who never, I think, has ever had I don't think he's ever been really appreciated anywhere near as much as perhaps he should have. No. And at the time we could say, oh, well, Lawrence Fishburne, but he wasn't a catch. He wasn't someone that, that people were all, gunning for to try to get into movies.
He's a character actor.
Yeah, absolutely. And this role is propelled him. Everyone knows him now as Morpheus, really. Yeah. That is what he's known as, even though he's been in loads of films, just absolutely loads of films.
I generally think before this, the film I knew him from was Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's certainly one. I remember him in Apocalypse Now, which at that time was one of my favourite movies. I was really into that kind of film, just sort of crazy and
barely in that. They just pops.
He's in it. No, he's in it. He's certainly a supporting role, but he's not tiny.
Yeah.
And he has a really a nasty death scene that he's in. But he was young now. He was like 17 years old, so it was like one of his first ever films. But but he's great. Everyone in it is great to the movie. So you have, who is it? Is it Carrie-Anne?
Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss.
Who I'd never heard of, and I don't think, apart from Memento, which came a year later, I don't think I've seen her in anything else other than the other.
But she's done a few films I can't think of, but I have seen her pop up in things. And Hugo. Yeah,
Hugo Weaving, who's brilliant. He's fantastic in it. He's a great actor anyway, but he's again made his career as well. And now he's in loads of stuff. They ended up being in the Lord of the Rings films and loads of other.
Yeah.
Big movies of different genres and types and things. So basically started him on the. I mean, I remember him from Priscilla Quinn Desert before that, but it was an little Australian indie film.
To me, that film came after because I saw it after. But it was a few years before, but 97,
94. I think.
Was it that early? Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think I saw it in 96, 97. Yeah. So again, great actor, and so you have great actors in it. But you also have a really interesting premise. There's a lot of interesting subtext in this film, which are not in played, of course. There's a lot of religious ideas and philosophical ideas of what it means to be human and what is reality and all of these things. They're not as heady and as incredible as a lot of people like to think they are. They're still very much, I think, still very pulp sci-fi type stuff, and should be seen as such. I don't think should be taken as seriously as some people like try to make it out to be. But it's great fun. It's good fun,
and it's not that most of the action movies up until then, even like Batman, especially Superman, were very often, yes, they save the world, but we've got to save the girl type thing, and there's none of that in this.
No,
it's there's no damsel in distress. It's not cheesy in that respect.
No,
it wasn't cheesy at all when it came out. I think it feels a bit in there because it had been copied so much.
Yes,
I mean, if it wasn't for the Matrix, you wouldn't have got the type of films like Eon Flux was made, and loads of it. And one thing we do have to touch on is, it's being shown for Comic Book Day. Now, it wasn't based on a comic book, but it's clearly heavily influenced by anime.
Yeah, absolutely.
And since there have been comic books, so I think it's a wise choice to show, because when people think about comics, you don't actually. I mean, like in front of me, somewhere in my vast office here, there's like Planet of the Apes comics and things like that, and comics are huge, and they're a brilliant way to follow things up. And the Matrix has spawned so much in that respect. But watching it is like, it came after Ghost in the Shell, didn't it? Yeah. And it's got that sort of look.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'd like to say, like you say, it's talking about how people, even though it was influenced by sort of more Japanese art, in that look, the aesthetical look, it is very much a sort of a film that has spawned a ridiculous amount of other type of films that are, similar in its ideas and whatnot. In that respect, I'd say it's kind of a Blade Runner of its time. Yeah. That it's had basically birthed a whole new range of sci-fi films.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And unlike Blade Runner, it was a massive hit.
Yeah. Truly. Yeah.
And I mean, it was a few years before the sequels, and we got 2 sequels in a year.
Yeah.
I'm not huge on them; they're well made.
Yeah.
But I thought the new one was good.
There was one. Was it last year or the year before? Wasn't there?
Yeah.
That came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, if it had been those 2 films, that'd have been great.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to see a double bill of the Matrix, and it's not one of the sequels.
Yeah. I mean, I think, comic books aside, I think the 2 films work well together. I think Blade and The Matrix work well as a timepiece of the era. Yeah. They really do sell that time, the end of the 90s, very well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I will say that when I overheard some of the talking about this double bill, and I think you wanted to get, or there was talk of getting the original Batman.
Yes.
And I was like, that would be cool, but this works better. It's not that 10-year
I agree.
Difference. And I think as well, effects-wise, if say Blade was on first, and then you watched the original Batman, you'd see the datedness in them 10 years. Original Batman's great.
It is absolutely fantastic.
But as a double bill, these, especially Blade, is a film that doesn't get the reissue at the cinema as much. The Matrix, I don't think I've seen it at the cinema since it came. I think it did get a 20th, 15th anniversary.
Sounds right.
But this really works. These two, a lot of people in their CD wallets would have had these soundtracks next to each other.
Completely. They'd be next to each other in the video, videos, boxes or DVDs coming a little later. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and
complement each other.
And at a fancy dress, someone would wear a long leather jacket.
Here we go.
And they'd go, you're Keanu Reeves, you're Neo. No, actually, I am the Blade.
That's it. They both talk about the look. I mean, they both wear the same costume, pretty much.
Yeah. So that was a very long. I had a tight trench coat at the end of the night. It's like not a leather one.
Wore the shades with?
No, because I've got glasses. It would scratch them.
Right.
So I had my long gothic.
I think I remember you having that. Actually.
And then underneath I'd be hidden my Armageddon t-shirt.
Very good.
I never had an Armageddon
t-shirt. What?
I know. But yeah, that was around this time.
It was
Yeah.
98, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But no, I think it's a great double bill. And I'm looking forward to this one.
Good.
And I think it works kind of well after the Blade Runner double bill. This is like, how many years later? 20 years later, and especially the Matrix. I mean, it's influenced by anime, but it's influenced by Blade Runner as well. Surely the look.
Absolutely, I would definitely certain bits to it. Yeah, got to be right.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we should wrap up.
Yeah, that should do it.
Anything else you want to say about The Matrix or Blade? I mean, one thing I did want to say about Blade was the director didn't do much else. And
no.
He tried another comic book movie, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Which again was, I think is quite liked, I think, by certain people. It definitely has its fans, but I don't think it did. Did it do well at the box office? I don't know. It didn't.
No, and it was apparently so different to the the comic that a lot of people don't like it at all. Right,
but it certainly does have its fans. I know people that have enjoyed watching it.
I believe it was the last film Sean Connery made.
It was his last movie, and I don't think that had anything to do necessarily with the film. He retired because he just had enough. And
it was
got to an age.
Actors are allowed to retire.
They should, just like Gene Hackman.
Why isn't Gene Hackman in the next Superman? Why? The French Connection free.
Don't.
But no, I admire that because some people get drawn back in.
Yeah, they do. Joe Pesci.
Yeah, and Joe Pesci's a lot older than you'd think. He's like 106.
Something like that.
Imagine if Joe Pesci did another Halloween. Not Halloween, what was it? Home Alone. Joe Pesci in Halloween would be great, but Joe Pesci in Home Alone falling down the stairs. Oh, he's dead. A friend of mine's kid watched Home Alone 2 and was not a very old child, but was counting how many times the Bladens would have died in real life.
That's a thing people have been doing, I think, since those films started coming out. Going, he's dead now, that's one. That's two.
So it's kind of like the what happens at the beginning of the new Puss in Boots movie. But
I haven't seen that, don't spoil it.
He's on his ninth life. He's on his ninth.
Drama.
It's really good. Okay, thank you, James, and hopefully be back next month to do
I hope so.
More chit chat and banter.
About movies.
About movies. Thank you. Okay, I'm here with Dan. Once again, you're going to give us a rundown on what's coming up at the cinema, yeah?
I am, yeah. We've got some great stuff coming up in May, so we're really looking forward to sharing all of that.
Brilliant. First of all, how did April go? I really enjoyed Superman the movie on the big screen.
Yeah, it was great to have that back on the big screen again. April went well. There's successive months where we're seeing bigger numbers, so it's good. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, and what was the one? A friend of mine several of my friends went to see Women Talking, and that was in the smaller screen, but they said it was packed.
Yeah, that did very well. We only had 2 shows of that, and they were both close to selling out, so that was terrific.
Brilliant. Yeah, I went there for Love and Hyde Smith yesterday, actually.
Good.
Which, to be fair, it's she's a writer, so I knew nothing about her. But really enjoyed it, interesting, and it's good to get something different that, I was like, well, it's on in the afternoon, I've got a day off, and I learned something, I think. So that's good.
If you can come out saying all of those things, then that's great.
Yeah. And it's also great. I also saw RoboCop in that screen. That's right.
There we go. See, we don't discriminate.
Yeah. So, what are you looking forward to in May? I've spoken with James about The Matrix and Blade.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's those two kind of kick off May, as we celebrate Free Comic Book Day. Yeah. So that should be great. So first weekend of the month, those 2 films. Also that week, we have a wonderful piece of Ukrainian cinema called Pamphir, which is it's a family drama. It's part thriller, part fairy tale, that's also in the other screen. So it's a smaller release, and that's going to be playing all week. And I'm looking forward to getting that out to audiences as well, because I've seen that one and it's very good.
Okay. Is that a family type movie, or is it more like Pan's Labyrinth?
No, yeah. So it's a 15 rated film. Okay. So it's much more sort of grown up themes.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
And great that we've got another Ukrainian film here as well. In terms of other new releases, we've also got Christopher Borley's Sick of Myself, which is being distributed by Modern Films, which again is fantastic. It's it's very tongue in cheek. It's a comment on today's ever increasing society of fame seekers. And it's very funny, very sharp witted. So that's highly recommended. I think anybody who likes national theatre and live broadcasts, they're going to be well served in May as well. Where we've got David Harewood and Zachary Quinto in Best of Enemies, which is a fantastic new play set during the run-up to the 1968 US presidential election, and it's terrific. It's it looks terrific. I haven't seen it yet. It looks absolutely sort of very, very engrossing. So now everybody's going to be well served with that one. Talking about national theatre, we've also got in June a return of Fleabag for a couple of shows as well. So I think that's going to sell fast.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants tickets for that, I would get in now.
Yeah, they're on sale now then. Yeah.
They're on sale now. Yeah. I think I would bring special notice to Ari Aster's new film, Beau is Afraid, which we're going to be showing towards the end of May. And if you liked Hereditary and Midsummer, then you're going to be here for this one. Another film produced and distributed by A24, so you kind of you the feel of the film that you're going to get already. Yeah. It's sort of a loose expansion of his 2011 short film, which was just called Beau. And this is expanded into 3 hours, so it's a long one.
Okay, because Midsummer was about 3 hours. I believe.
Midsummer was about 3 hours, yeah.
That was a few years ago now, so this is quite an anticipated movie.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were about three or 4 years, I think, maybe 4 years. Yeah, 4 years since Midsummer.
Really? Okay, that's gone quickly. I suppose lockdowns happened and lots of things.
That's right.
But yeah, this is when I'm really been a horror fan. But Midsummer was like the brightest horror film I've ever seen.
It was
always something.
Lots
different.
of blue sky.
Yeah. So this is one I'm really looking forward to. Don't know much about it. I'm sort of deliberately not wanting to know much about it because, especially with horror, it's nice to. Sometimes trailers can give away too much.
Yeah.
Midsummer certainly didn't though. You just had the mid-trailer, the Midsummer trailer was like, okay, so is it The Wicker Man?
That's right.
And yes and no, so it didn't spoil it at all. I've not seen the trailer for this, so you'll be showing the trailer soon.
We will, yeah. So you'll need to close your eyes and block your ears when it comes.
I'll be buying more fruit pastels. That's bigger than A24 as well. I mean, some great films in the last few years. Lamb I saw here, that was A24, I believe.
A24, yeah. Here it was distributed by Mubi, but US it was A24. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. They're doing good stuff for horror.
Yeah. I mean, but Beau is Afraid, I think, is less of that and more of kind of very psychologically left field stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, but still, it's still going to have that stamp of personality that you come to expect.
Yeah, you could still get nightmares.
Yeah, I reckon so. Yeah, a lot of Wizard of Oz imagery in there as well.
Okay.
So yeah. Restorations. Shall we talk a little bit about restorations that we've got coming? So we're doing 2 shows of Raging Bull, which has received a new 4K restoration from Criterion, and that's been released here by Park Circus. The restoration was supervised and approved by Martin Scorsese and his longtime editor Thelma Schoonmaker, who Thelma Schoonmaker attended a preview screening of Goodfellas here at this cinema when it was the Ipswich Film Theatre back in '91 to do a Q&A on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the cinema.
Oh.
So
That's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. So we're doing that for 2 shows. One of those shows is exclusive to members as well, and that will be free. So tickets are on sale already. So if we've got any members listening to this podcast, you've got a free screening of Raging Bull waiting for you.
Excellent.
2000.
So I was just going to say that's something that you're looking to a bit more of, isn't it? Showings for members.
Yeah, absolutely. Free screenings for members. We can talk about membership as well in a sec, I guess.
Yeah.
But a free screening every quarter for members.
Cool.
And obviously the first one of those free screenings is Raging Bull. In terms of other restorations, we're doing 2001: A Space Odyssey again, which gets big audiences all the time. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. That's part of the Warner Brothers 100th anniversary tour. So yeah, 3 shows actually we're doing for that. So again, tickets on sale if you want some. Get in quick. And we're also doing Safety Last for its 100th anniversary.
Ah, yes.
Harold Lloyd, the brilliant Harold Lloyd, in a very, very famous film, which is short as well. It's like 70 minutes long. So, for those of you who you go from one extreme to the other, you can watch a 70-minute Safety Last and then the 3-hour Beau is Afraid, which are going to be shown in the same week actually as well.
Excellent.
So yeah, looking forward to all 3 of those restorations. They're going to be great.
Are there many showings of Safety Last?
2.
2? Excellent.
Yeah.
Because I'm a massive fan of silent movies, especially comedy. And just thinking, I didn't know you were showing that, which is great, so I'll be at that. But I think the only silent movie I've ever seen in the cinema, and it wasn't a comedy, was Nosferatu. And that was here.
Yeah, there we go.
Probably over 20 years ago, with an organ playing. And that was great. I was in college, so it was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was probably its 10th anniversary or something. But that was great. And I do think a lot of people, younger people, they're all aware of people like Harold Lloyd and the Chaplins, Buster Keaton, that sort of thing. But how many have actually sat down and watched one of the movies? Because I think a lot of people might be put off, but the younger people grew up with Mr. Bean and that sort of thing, and it's not too far away, and that's one that I'd recommend anyone to come and see.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I really look forward to that. That's good news. I should really do a bit more research before, because I'd have known you were showing that. But that's really cool.
Yeah. So I suppose those are the main kind of films that I would draw everybody's attention to. I mean, I would draw everybody's attention to everything for sure. Yeah. But those are some of the big ones that we're doing this month.
Yeah, a lot going on. And should we talk about the membership?
Yes,
let's. Did you just want to go? I mean, we mentioned it when you started the membership again, which was probably the 2nd episode we've done, so it's a while ago now. Did you just want to get over what's included when you become a member?
Yeah, okay. So when you sign up for membership, you receive 2 free tickets, which you can use whenever you want. And you receive no booking fees online. You'll receive £1 off your ticket, whether that's a film ticket or a National Theatre ticket, and 10% off food and drink as well. We're also adding to that, which we've mentioned, free films every quarter. And the first one of those yet is Raging Bull. We haven't yet decided on what the next one will be, but it's quite a way off. So members will be notified of that once that decision has been made and it's on sale, or not on sale, but tickets are available.
Yeah.
We've also renamed the membership program, because initially it was just member.
Yeah.
So we've renamed that as King Street All Access, and along with all those other advantages, you'll also receive exclusive emails to keep you up to date on exclusive member advantages as well. You'll also get early notifications of films before they go on sale. So if you're looking to get in before anybody else, then become a member, sign up to the emails, or you'll automatically be added to the email list. And if you want to, you can opt out. There's no reason to nothing keeping you locked into those emails if you don't want to receive emails. You'll also get exclusive access to our Instagram King Street All Access, which is where the first notifications will appear on films and special events that are coming up. So and if you're sharing posts and stories about King Street, that's where you will also find us sharing those posts and stories. So if you're on Instagram, get on there.
Yeah, that's great. And just now you said the quarterly films. If you go to all those films and the 2 free tickets, it more than pays for itself with just that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it's not an expensive membership program.
No. We
currently have just over 100 members now. Sign-ups every week, which is great.
Yeah, it's good. That's, I certainly take full advantage of the discount, and well worth doing. And it's just a one payment per year, isn't it? It's not going to It's not going to be that last of the month bill that comes out.
That's it. You pay once and that's it.
Yeah.
We are currently looking at setting up recurring payments because obviously the emphasis then is on when a membership is due to expire, the emphasis is on us to get notification out there to the member to do that. So to make it easier for everybody, we are setting that up as an option.
Cool. Yeah. Which is a reminder for me, it must have been nearly a year. So that's really cool. We're just going to mention as well the fundraiser that's currently happening.
Yeah.
I saw you in the East Anglian, Daily Star, wasn't it? An article.
That's right. There was they kindly did an article for us over the weekend. I think that was lovely. Yeah, we spoke to BBC Radio Suffolk as well. So yeah, there's the words out there. Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit if you want. On here.
Yeah.
We're. I think to give a background on exactly why we're doing a fundraiser, we show almost every film on a digital projector that is now 15 years old, and that is running on components that are now not replaceable. So it's our engineering firm has done, I think, everything they can to keep it running. Yeah. We now find ourselves in a position where there's nothing more that they can do, and we need a new projector, and we need it within about 8 weeks. We have about 8 weeks of life left on the lamp that's in there. We can swap out the lamp for a new lamp and keep this projector running beyond those 8 weeks. But that's what we don't want to do, is find ourselves in a position where we're spending more money on an old projector that could fail at any moment, and then we have to buy a new projector anyway. Yeah. So we want to avoid that scenario. And so we've had long conversations with our engineering company, and we've selected a projector to replace this one with, and that is a new laser projector, which means that we won't be using lamps anymore, which means that the cost of replacing a lamp is now no longer a concern. Lamps are about $2,000, so that saves us that cost. And it also means that the energy cost to the building is less, because laser will use a lot less energy than a Xenon lamp, for example, to run. And the energy usage of the machine itself is going to be less anyway. And that benefits us, it benefits the energy usage of the building, and it benefits the Ipswich taxpayer as well, who is the primary funder of the building that we're in. So it has benefits all around, but we can't meet that cost on our own. The cost will be in the region of 36 to sort of £38,000 for this new projector. So the funding drive is to help us raise half of that, which will go a very long way in helping us, meet that cost. And I think in the first 5 days we reached about £4,000 of our £18,000 total. So yeah, and we are sort of 5-6 days in now as we talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean we're I've said it before, we're kind of humbled, and we find the support heartwarming, because there's been a lot of it, a lot of support, a lot of coverage, a lot of people wanting to talk about it and share the story, which is, it's lovely that there are that many people who share the concern for something that is independent. It's lovely.
Yeah. So we'll put the links up. They're already on the sites, but do check it out. Times are hard. Not saying cliche, but it's very true.
That's right.
And to be fair, that's one of the many reasons I've come here. Is the price of a ticket isn't expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
I am a big fan of all types of films. I'm not going to say I don't go to multiplexes because I don't want to lie. I do. I saw Armageddon when it came out. And that's what that is. But this is what this is. And the discoveries I've made this cinema, personally, just as I don't know if I mentioned it before recording or while recording, I saw The Five Devils here in April. A film that I would not have even heard of if I didn't see the trailers here. It was in French. I've not seen it on any of the multi screens, and for me, it's on the big multiplexes, not multi screen. And I would never have heard of it. I'm not going to lie, and it's one of my favourite films this year. I've done a top 20 list of movies last year, and I reckon 10 of them I saw here at least. And if you're a fan of movies, this is the place to be in Ipswich. I started coming here, as I mentioned earlier, when I was in college, which is well over 2 decades ago. I enjoyed it then. I saw some great movies. I mentioned Nosferatu, Best in Show I remember seeing here. But I think there's so much more now than there was then as well. It's what you guys have done in the last sort of couple of years. The mix of things here is fantastic. In the last week or so I've seen Superman the movie, one of my favourite films. And then discovering foreign language, independent, is great. So, I'm sure people who are listening to this anyway know this, but help spread the word every way you can. We've all got social media, or most people have. Hit share. That's the way to do it. Yeah. So,
that's right. It's a tap. If you want to be selective about the content that you share, that's a wise thing. Include us in your selection.
Yeah, exactly, and it won't annoy people if you're sharing things like that. I used to be an avid. I'll share everything on Facebook, and slowly my friends were deserting me. But I think cinema movies is something pretty much everyone takes an interest in, even if they're not an avid fan. I mean, you can talk about movies with everybody, and usually there's less argument than if you're talking about, say, sport.
That's very true. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else we want to mention? We've covered quite a bit.
I think that's it. We've given an overview of May.
Yeah.
And we talked about a good few things there. So I think that's probably it from me.
Okay.
Nobody wants to listen to me
until
anymore.
next month. We'll be chatting about other stuff.
We will.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what the other double bills will be. Talk of bringing back the VHS.
We are actually. We are. VHS Fridays is going to morph into VHS Nights because we want to give people as many opportunities as possible to see some of these films. So rather than being restricted to a Friday, we're just opening out to VHS Nights. So we're doing Jurassic Park in June.
Yeah.
For its 30th anniversary, 30 years.
That's something I was going to mention because it's not on the site yet, is it?
It's not. No.
But
we're not
if you
on
look on the website, it might have changed by the time this comes out. It says VHS Fridays, VHS Nights. Then there's a picture of Jurassic Park in the background. So I'm like, and you showed the trailer, I believe, before
Superman.
The teaser trailer, which I hadn't seen for 30 years.
Oh, teaser! That's a work of brilliance. That teaser trailer.
That's why I'm really looking forward to that. Jurassic Park, one of my all-time favourites, and to me that is proof that you can get a quality, big budget blockbuster. There seems less of them. They seem. I don't know. There seems so many now that it's kind of watered down. Do you know what I mean? You get like a Marvel film every month, but back then you get 2 or 3 big films a year, and if you were lucky, one of them was really good.
Yeah, that's right. And it would play for months.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be gone in a couple of weeks. It would be there for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. Which happens very rarely now. The only example in recent years I can think of is Avatar seemed to be there for about 3 months.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen very often.
No.
And James Cameron doesn't release a film very often, so that's probably why. Okay, so thanks a lot. Just everyone should follow all the socials. Just type in King Street Cinema on Instagram, Facebook. And then if you become an all access member, there's another more exclusive page as well.
That's right.
Which you have to you add it and then you get accepted if you're a member. Is that how you do that?
Yeah, that's how we run it.
Excellent. Okay, thanks a lot, Dan, and speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Dan, big thanks to James, big thanks to everybody at King Street Cinema. Thank you all for listening. Check us all out on the socials. There'll be another episode with you very, very soon. I've been Andy, and keep watching those movies.